Hey, it's a Scotch Test Dummies. We got a review of Blackland Bourbon whiskey.
Texas whiskey, kinda.
We're gonna kind of test it.
Test it! 20% Texas style.
All right, we got a new Texas whiskey.
Yeah, Christmas on Crestline brought it back.
Okay.
He was down there in Fort Worth. He brought back Blackland. Now, it's kind of interesting. It says Fort Worth, and then it talks about a few things on the back, but it does say blended and bottled by Blackland Distillery, and then 70% aged 2 years.
And that we can't figure out.
Right, so that did lead me, and we don't do research, but you were like, well, that's weird. So I did look that up online, and it said that 80% of the whiskey for this is from a distillery in Minnesota that's aged 4 years, and 20% is young whiskey from Blackland.
Okay. Which it says a blended whiskey aged in Texas. What's it say?
It just says blended and bottled by Blackland Distillery, and then 70% aged 2 years, Fort Worth, Texas.
70% aged 2 years. Okay.
That's the part that's confusing.
Yeah. But 80% of it is a 4-year-old Minnesota whiskey.
But 70% of it is aged 2 years.
And I looked up Minnesota distilleries to see maybe this is somebody we know. And there's the Minnesota Distillery Guild that has, how many distilleries in Minnesota do you think there are, Bart?
I would guess 6.
There's 20.
Dang, they're really getting her done. I think we only got 2. We only got 2 in Kansas.
And I don't recognize any of them by name. But to have a 4-year-old whiskey from Minnesota, they're blending it with Texas whiskey. Texas, it's a bourbon. It's a blended bourbon.
Yeah, it says bourbon whiskey. It does say we use innovative distillation methods to produce remastered spirits, which is another thing that is perplexing. So,
yeah,
I don't know exactly what this is.
Yeah, it's innovative distillation techniques.
What I wish is that it actually said on there, hey, we got this from blank blank in Minnesota. And
yeah, exactly.
Right. And that we're growing our own, but we're a small distillery and 20% of our younger whiskey is in here.
Yeah.
They've clearly said it somewhere because it shows up online when it's explained in different places.
Now, you do get that 20% of Texas whiskey, you do get on the nose, though. There's a hint of the mesquite, that kind of or that sage.
Sagebrush, yeah. It's like a burnt sagebrush, which is the nose that we do usually pick up from Texas.
It's a nice, sweet cinnamon caramel nose.
I agree. It smells sweet.
I was getting some orange pulp, like some orange zest even on it.
Christmas on Crestline brought this back. I don't know if he bought it or if they gave it to him to give to us. So Christmas on Crestline, put that info in the comments if you want.
And you work with Christmas.
That I do. And he also said that I can't remember the owner's name, but he said he knew about the Scotch Test Dummies. So that's good.
Didn't Christmas on Crestline? That's a YouTube channel, by the way. He does Christmas lights. Didn't he have a Russian newspaper or news channel do a story on it?
Yeah, there was it's a division of PBS because he did. Due to the COVID-19, he decided to do what he calls Easter balls. I call them great balls of Easter. And they were pink pink and like purple, and they looked like balls, but he used Christmas lights, and then he put them out, and it allowed people to socially distance but come by and enjoy the festive lights of Easter. And this got picked up by, it's a division of PBS, so they came out and filmed it, and then it got translated into Russian, and he had that with him talking with this like Ivan-esque Russian language, which was cool. So, Christmas, Christmas on Crestline is international. By the way, he's over 1,000 subscribers. He was ecstatic last week. So very cool. What do you get on the flavor? The nose is sweet and brown sugary.
So I had low expectations coming in. The palate surprises me. It's really rich. It's sweet. There's caramels. There's cinnamons. There's sugars. There's a hint of Texas that's in there.
Yeah, it's a lot sweeter than I thought it was going to be. The brown sugar oatmeal kind of flavors that I would get from the chunk. And I didn't tell you before, the ABV on this is weird. It's 41.5%. That was another odd number or an odd thing.
It's like they told Jimmy to go down there and, bring it down to 45.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jimmy, accidentally tips the bucket too far. And then they're like, we'll test it. What is it? That's 41.5.
That's that. And he said, 41.5. And they're like, bottle it. It tastes good.
Now, the thing is, though, I'm going to hazard a guess. A lot of this has to be coming from that 4-year-old Minnesota whiskey rather than the young Texas whiskey. Some of that richness, that sweetness.
I agree.
I think that the hint of that Texas, that sage is in there. So that young Texas whiskey is showing through. But I think a lot of this palate is that Minnesota whiskey.
But see, I'm also torn here because if you age Texas whiskey for a year and a half, it's like 6 years anywhere. Well, probably not. It's like 3 years anywhere else. So I don't know. That's the part where I really wish it was laid out right on here, because you and I both know, we know enough Texas distillers. They're like, hey, if you leave it in the barrel for a year and a half, it's over oaked. We got to pull it out. All we can find online is that it said a young Texas whiskey, but 4 years way up north in Minnesota versus a year and a half in Texas. Man, I almost think the Texas whiskey could age faster. 85. I will say I like the flavors here. You're nice. I'm going to say 88. I would bring it down to 87 just because they don't have all the disclosure on the bottle about 80%.
Well, that doesn't affect the score, though. I mean, the score should be what your palate is getting. I don't think it disappoints. And we found out as well, you looked online, $38 is kind of the going price for this.
Right.
I think for that, it's not a bad buy at all. I think the 41.5%, any of your experienced whiskey drinkers, they're going to be disappointed by that. We want, 46, 48, 50, or even higher ABV. This is an entry-level bottle. It's 41.5%. It's actually, the palate surprises me. I had low expectations coming in. It meets them or exceeds even a little bit. I really expected it to be a little rougher than it is. But nice. I think and if they need to be a little bit more transparent on there. But that 4-year-old Minnesota whiskey, I think is the majority of the palate here, and it's very nice. But
80% of it,
yeah. Well, except for the 70% that's aged 2 years in Texas.
But I don't get it. But there's only 20% of the whiskey that's. So that's my deal. You're right. If my tasting score would be just a straight 88, I like it. It's good.
Yeah.
It's sweet. It's got that touch of sagebrush. But it was, because I even told you, I took you a sample of this because we're doing the social distancing.
Mhm.
I told you this is a Texas whiskey. Christmas on Crestline was down there, and let's give it a go. And then as I'm reading this stuff off, it just kept saying weird stuff. Innovative distillation methods. What does that mean? I want to know what that means. And then blended and bottled by Blackland, 70% aged 2 years, Fort Worth, Texas. What does that mean? And because you and I, we don't do tons of research. We're the dummies.
No.
But that sent me online looking, because we were both like, well, what is that? That doesn't mean anything. What does that mean?
Yeah. But overall, it's not bad. It's a good whiskey. $38. And, I suppose, you can go out, you can buy, Elijah Craig, Maker's Mark, Buffalo Trace, $25 to $30 if you can find it. For $38, I guess it is a little bit higher. It's not bad though. It's a good whiskey. This is made, like I say, that 41.5% for mass marketers, try to get it introduced to beginners, people coming into whiskey, make it palatable, make it pleasurable, and not make it harsh. So I think they succeeded at that.
Yeah, I mean it's a good tasting whiskey. And with what we do, you and I just like to know a little bit more on the bottle. If this is not 100% Texas whiskey, maybe you say it rather than describing what Blackland means as far as like a rich soiled prairie.
Yeah.
I would rather know, where did you get 80% of your whiskey for this?
Yeah.
And it seems like you've got a good 20% going here, because I can pick up that Texas touch.
Yeah.
But maybe it's, maybe you say, hey, this is blended in partnership with our buddies in, Duluth. Maybe they're in Duluth. We don't know where they're at.
We're a new distillery, and we can't wait for our spirit to age. In the meantime, here's some of our young whiskey blended with an older whiskey.
That's the marketing. I think you could say, look, we gave it a Texas kick. You can pick up a little bit of the sagebrush. Wait till we come out with our next one that's 80% Texas and 20% Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah, I know. You could play up a whole thing on it. And then I'm like, cool, that's cool. I want to see what that's about. What is that about? That's all I'm saying.
Sounds good.
All right. Scotch it, you Scotch gods.
Cilantro. Dummies.